When I was first starting out learning about JavaScript, I kept hearing people say, everything in JavaScript is an object. But then I would also learn about different data types within JavaScript and how JavaScript has numbers, strings, booleans, and different data types like that. And I definitely just didn't understand what people were getting at when they said everything in JavaScript is an object, and then go on and talk about the different data types in JavaScript. That was highly confusing to me. But there is kind of truth to both sides here, and this video is going to clear that up for you if you're also kind of wondering about what's going on here. So is everything in JavaScript an object? Yes and no. The no part of it is not technically everything in JavaScript is the data type of object. JavaScript has several data types, and I have an entire video on this channel about data types that you can see in depth. But JavaScript has strings, numbers, booleans, and different data types like that. And if we look at these different constants here, so I have this constant, my string assigned to a string, my number assigned to a number, and then an object assigned to an object. And when I look at the type of these different constants, so I use the type of operator, which returns the data type of these three different constants, you're going to see when I run this, I get string, number, object. So these all have different data types here. So JavaScript definitely does have different data types, and not everything is just going to return object when you use the type of operator. But the truth behind everything being an object, the kind of yes portion here, is everything behaves like an object within JavaScript. And this is because in JavaScript, it has what is called autoboxing. And this is kind of a fancy term to describe that even primitive values within JavaScript, so numbers, strings, booleans, these are primitive values within JavaScript. Even these values are going to be technically wrapped in an object. And they are wrapped in this object to give you certain kind of helpful functions that you can use on the object and different properties of the object and different things like that. So for example, if you have a string in JavaScript, you can use the .length property on that string. Well, if it's a primitive value and if it wasn't wrapped in an object, well, how would you access a .length property? Well, you couldn't, because it wouldn't be an object. But in JavaScript, this string is going to be wrapped in an object, which is going to give you this .length property. And it's going to give you several other kind of helpful methods and functionality as well. So these primitive data types, they are wrapped in an object to kind of give you some of these helpful properties and methods that you can use on them. So checking out an example here in a little bit more detail, I have kind of the same examples I have above here, in which I'm going to comment these out first so I don't get errors. But I have a string assigned to the string code Ryan, and then I have a number assigned to 10. And here on lines 38 and 39, what I do is I use my string label, so my constant, my string, and I access the toUpperCase method on my string. So since a string is wrapped in an object, I can use it just like an object. And I can access with dot notation the toUpperCase method, and I can call that method. And what that's going to do is convert my string to all uppercase characters. And then similarly with my number, I can access on my number object with dot notation the toFixed method, and that's going to basically give me a number that has 4 decimal points here because I'm passing the value of 4 to my toFixed method. So if I run my code here, you're going to see that I get all capitalized code Ryan here because I call the toUpperCase method and I cancel that out to my terminal here. And then also I get 10 with .0000 because I call toFixed on my number and I add 4 kind of decimal point spaces there. So even though this string is a primitive value, and same thing with this number, it's wrapped in an object and it behaves like an object to give me some of these helpful methods and some different properties and different things like that. So if I use a property here, so I can use the .length property like I talked about earlier, and if I run this, it's going to give me the length of the string, which is 9. And quick tip, when you get a length of a string within JavaScript, it will include these spaces right here. But in JavaScript, it does have specific data types, and it does have primitive data types. And not everything is going to have the data type of object. However, even primitive values within JavaScript are going to be wrapped in an object, and this is called autoboxing. And this is done because it gives you helpful methods and properties that you can still use on these primitive values that definitely come in handy from time to time. So hopefully that clears up the question of whether everything is an object in JavaScript. I know it was confusing for me when I was just starting out, and stay tuned for future videos helping you understand JavaScript and front-end development in general a little bit better. So I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you in that next one.